For our audience today, I want to make sure that everyone understands aging. And before we get into peptides and protocols, let's talk about a little bit of the science of aging. So, at a cellular and biological level, what's aging and what is actually going inside the body as we're getting older?
Well, aging is not one thing, of course. I would say it's accumulation of damage across all systems within our body. Starting with, of course, mitochondria health. When you get older, your mitochondria not stop, but the production of ATP declines, and now that contributes a lot to cell death, of course. Inflammation, huge thing. You name it. There's so many factors. People say, "Oh, there's a peptide that lengthen your telomeres, and this will stop aging." Unfortunately, it's just not one thing. It's telomeres. It's inflammation. It's cellular damage. It's misfolding of the protein. It's DNA mutation. I mean, there's just cascade of things that involved in aging.
So, you focus a lot on mitochondrial health. Why are they crucial in aging and what happens with them over time?
You know why your grandma is still alive? Because her cells are still producing ATP. And what's producing ATP? It's mitochondria.
Mhm.
So we are alive because of mitochondria. If we look at the bigger picture, mitochondria produces ATP. ATP is used to fuel us.
Mhm.
Every cell in our body, the heart, the lungs, the liver, everything, your brain. ATP is it's the gas, like for your car. That's what ATP is for us.
So, is aging reversible in your opinion?
On the mice right now, yes. Well, if we don't have any evidence in humans, of course, but we do have evidence in petri dish, on a cell line, on some rodent models that we can reverse some damage. And it's very exciting because and promising because one day, and I believe one day we will reverse the blindness. We will reverse some genetic mutation that leads to faster aging. And it's very exciting.
Yeah, I did see that there's that study that is now focused now on reversing age to see if it's possible on the human study. So it's a lot of exciting things going on in
Yes.
that space. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what they come up with as far as results go. So this show today is our first episode, and it's focused on peptides, of course, and the science of that. But there's a lot of people out there I talk to almost every single day, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, I've heard about it, but what is a peptide?" So let's talk about that. What is a peptide for all of our listeners and give it to them in maybe the simplest way?
Sure, I like to describe it the way I describe it to my patient. Think of your body as a Lego. So many little, like probably billions of little pieces that you put together, and that's what human being is. So those Legos are peptides. Peptides is just a short chain of amino acids from 2 to 75, maybe. Imagine a string with the beans on it. So 2 to 75 would be peptide. Something longer than 75 will be polypeptide. And those peptides act as a messengers. So you all heard about BPC-157 or any other peptide, and when you inject it, what happens? What happens when you inject peptide? It's a message, so your body needs to read that message. So peptide is not a pharmaceutical drug. Well, some of them are GLPs, but most of the peptide that we're here to talk about are peptides that are right now became so popular. So peptide is just a message for your body to create something that you're lacking.
So this is something that people should pay attention to.
Absolutely. Peptides can turn on your genetics and can influence hormone release. For example, your growth hormone is released by GnRH. That's a peptide. Also, if a woman, when she ovulates, FSH and agent is involved, and that is influenced by also GnRH through the brain. So peptides influence a lot of things in our body. Absolutely, we should be focusing a lot our attention to peptides.
So in your practice, let's talk about which peptides do you use the most? And if someone comes to your practice, what's the ones that you think that have the strongest evidence behind them that you guys use the most?
I would say GLP-1s. We had Ozempic, which was the GLP-1. Then it was created dual agonist, tirzepatide, which is GLP-1 and GIP, and retatrutide right now is in the clinical trials. Is a three pep three agonists, but we're not gonna talk about that much because we cannot really use that. So we'll talk about tirzepatide. That's the most I use that the most in my practice. Um, Other peptides would be after the GLPs will be tesamorelin.
Hmm.
And after tesamorelin, the most that we use would be probably thymosin alpha.
I see. So let's talk about some of the ones out there that people have probably heard about quite often. GHKCU, GLP-1s you already talked about, CJC ipamorelin. It's kind of up there with tesamorelin. Do you use any of these, and what do these do?
Sure, we do use GHKCU. Um, the one thing about GHKCU, it stings upon injections.
Hmm.
So not everybody would stick to it.
Hmm.
We would, unfortunately, to see the results, probably people should use it for 8 weeks
Hmm.
on average, but I used it myself. It does really sting.
Hmm.
If I'm not sure if you ever injected it.
Hmm.
Um, but that's a great potential. That peptide has a great potential with a collagen and elastin production.
Hmm.
Also, people with structural damage of their joints, they would benefit from that peptide
Wow,
because it
interesting.
rebuilds the fibroblast.
Hmm.
Fibroblast is what your cartilage, um, cartilage is partly made of fibroblasts. So those are the cells that are responsible for rebuilding the broken tendons, ligaments. Another peptides would be peptide like that would be BPC 157. Copper and BPC 157, I would say structurally, they do heal
Hmm.
the tissue similarly.
So I have a question, and I would love your answer. This is something that you see out there. There's a peptide that is popular called Glow. What's your opinion on, do you mix GHKCU with BPC and TB500, or should you do those separately? I'm just curious on your
From
opinion.
the chemical standpoint, you don't mix them. I don't think you because copper peptide pH is very acidic. If you look at BPC and TB, their pH is not as acidic. So there is a risk of denaturation. There is a risk of cross reaction.
Hmm.
And people say, no, the stability, we send it to the testing for stability. Stability is just one of the things, but you have to look at the broader, bigger picture. It's not only stability. None of the tests can show you if there is a chemical reaction occurred and if there is a new now chemical that has been made. Nobody can show that.
Gotcha. So what
I
are
say,
some,
no, don't mix.
okay, no mix. So you hear that from Dr. Ksenia. So for things that people get wrong about peptides, let's talk about what the biggest misconception is that you see online that just sticks out in your head.
The biggest misconception is that people think peptides will fix everything.
Hmm.
And I have lots of examples. For example, a 60-year-old woman would come to my office and she would say, I feel like crap. I need the peptides. I heard on the internet I need the peptides. And I would say, maybe peptides is not the first thing we should look at.
Hmm.
We should look at your hormones because you're postmenopausal. So the reason you feel like crap is because you are lacking estrogen, progesterone, and those hormones that used to make you feel the way you used to feel when you felt good. And I always say, if you're at certain age, over 50, over 45, let's focus on HRT first, and then we'll add peptides because peptides, they're not a miracle molecules, they're an addition to your wellness, to your lifestyle.
So let's focus now a little bit on longevity. There's a lot of talk about longevity, health, and wellness. And being here in Miami, it's one of the hearts of the longevity, health, and wellness community. We now have, I mean, a week dedicated to wellness, which is very cool. So when a patient comes to you and they say, I want to work on longevity, like what's going through the process of the conversation with that patient, and what do you kind of start with when you talk about a longevity focus with a patient?
Absolutely. We start with blood work. Longevity is not one thing. We have to look at their lipid profile. We have to look at their thyroid health. We have to look at their female and male hormones. You have to look at the whole picture. And based on the picture, let's say a person has high triglycerides. Would we put them on peptides? Probably we'll talk about the lifestyle first. Why do you have elevated cholesterol? What's your diet looks like? What's your exercise regimen? And trust me, every other person comes to my office do not exercise